Very few people have touched the world as she has.
These are Australia's very personal memories, now tucked away. Moments we will never see again. Of the Queen as we got to know her, here on our own soil. Memories that stretch back over 16 visits to Australia, from the first in 1954.
I did but see her passing by, and yet I love her till I die.
To her last in 2011, when she was as popular as ever, drawing enormous crowds. When Australia seemed to realise that perhaps she would not be passing by this way again. We certainly made the most of it. The Queen had visited, over more than half a century, great areas of Australia. Every capital city. Seen us at work.
A model of the completed plant at Elizabeth helps Her Majesty to gain an impression of the magnitude of the establishment.
And at play.
Among the events were surf races between teams from Australia and New Zealand.
And witnessed our memorable moments. She was a young queen when she first came here, just 28. The first time a reigning British monarch had visited Australia. The reception was momentous.
And here they are at last, amongst us, moving in triumphal progress through each city in its turn. Sydney first, boisterous, open-handed Sydney, painting the big town red, white and blue.
And that visit cemented a long mutual friendship.
Standing at last on Australian soil, on this spot that is the birthplace of the nation, I want to tell you all how happy I am to be amongst you and how much I look forward to my journey through Australia.
All through the years that have followed, Australia has watched from half a world away the great moments of the Queen's reign, sometimes relishing the regal splendour, sometimes witnessing the upheavals that from time to time have rippled through her royal life.
And the royal family there, immediately behind the coffin.
Elizabeth was born in 1926. Her father, the Duke of York, was second son of King George V. With George's death, and then the abdication of elder son Edward VIII, Elizabeth's father was suddenly king. The direction of her own life, as heir to the crown, suddenly changed direction dramatically.
Queen's amused consternation when Princess Elizabeth dropped the stitch.
Her upbringing was something incomparable to how today's young royals are raised. She had private tuition in constitutional history, learnt French from governesses brought over from France, and was a girl guide in the Buckingham Palace Company, formed especially so she could make friends with girls her own age. Looking back now, it was all extraordinary. But if life seemed mapped out for her, Elizabeth would follow her own heart when it came to marriage. Philip was a minor prince of tangled European origins and Elizabeth's third cousin. Just before the outbreak of the Second World War, when she was only 13, she visited Dartmouth to review cadets of the Royal Navy. He was assigned her escort that day. They would then exchange letters through the war, when he was stationed on warships, while she was an army driver. They wed in 1947 and would have 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew and Edward. In 1952, Elizabeth and Philip were in Kenya when her father died. She was proclaimed Queen and crowned in Westminster Abbey in June 1953. Elizabeth soon charted the defining course of her reign. Buckingham Palace might be headquarters, the 4 corners of the Commonwealth, however, would be her constant home away from home. In that first visit to Australia in 1954, it's estimated 3/4 of our population turned out to see her.
Through the 6 heart cities of 6 great states.
Those early years as monarch saw her constantly on the move. The Pacific nations, Canada, the United States, Cyprus, India, Pakistan, Nepal, all that time she was also carrying out the great ceremonies of the British Crown, opening Parliament.
My government will continue to work to bring communities together and strengthen society.
Hosting visiting heads of state.
I do hope you can see me today from where you are.
And presiding over the military ceremonies that are at the very heart of London. And if the Queen seemed a merely symbolic commander-in-chief, she showed she had grit nonetheless. In 1981, as she took part in Trooping the Colour, a man in the crowd fired 6 blank shots as the Queen passed.
Field Marshal His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards.
Cool as can be, Elizabeth reined in her horse Burmese as it shied.
Burmese receiving a reassuring pat from Her Majesty the Queen, but he's a very experienced, wise old fellow.
The Queen never even glanced in the direction of the shots as the man was arrested.
They do strong stuff, you know.
Horses were undoubtedly her passion, whether riding in the grounds of Windsor Castle or wheeling home a winner at Ascot. The Queen, an avid horse breeder who loved a day at the races. But if she enjoyed life around the stables and in the saddle, it was a different job altogether, reining in her own family. She had been, in one way, responsible for letting them off the leash. It was the Queen, after all, who tried, sometimes with an almost naive and faltering charm, to make the royals seem more human. She introduced the royal walkabout.
She's professional, you know, her ability to know how to move around, to who to speak to, and how to also engage with people, you know, within a few split seconds of meeting them.
However, the next generation will be in the news for all the wrong reasons. When Charles met Diana, it was billed, inevitably by the tabloids, as the fairy tale romance. But even before they wed, there were ominous reservations.
And I suppose in love.
Of course.
Whatever in love means.
The wedding was a royal spectacle that only England can produce.
I, Charles Philip Arthur George.
I, Charles Philip Arthur George.
Take thee, Diana Frances.
Take thee, Diana Frances.
To my wedded wife.
To my wedded wife.
In 2002, the death of her sister Margaret. Then the passing of that old royal warrior, her mum, known universally as the Queen Mother. All in the very year when Elizabeth was celebrating her Golden Jubilee. 50 years on the throne. A moment marked by wonderful British whimsy. Great ceremonies one day, street parties the next. There is no doubt Queen Elizabeth has wielded a subtle influence, a hint here and there on the way her country has been run. And she has played a role on the wider political arena, quietly working to ease apartheid in South Africa. Nelson Mandela defied protocol and fondly called her Elizabeth when they met. And the Queen helped heal the decades-long rift between Britain and the Irish Republic when she visited Dublin in 2011. Even immersed in all the royal trappings, she had the knack of putting people at ease, with her quiet humour and curiosity. And she also harboured a great sense of mischief.
Good evening, Mr. Bond.
Good evening, Your Majesty.
Playing herself alongside Daniel Craig as James Bond in a short film for the opening of the London Olympics in 2012. Before we knew it, she had added 10 years to her reign, celebrations marking her Diamond Jubilee. 60 years on the throne. A royal record tumbled, Elizabeth overtaking Queen Victoria as the longest reigning British monarch. But in her 90s, she remained sharp-eyed, ready to remind her grandson to stand at the proper moment, ready to make sure the family went to church. There were still speed bumps, however, for the Queen to navigate. There was great alarm over the dubious friendship her second son, Andrew, had with American sex predator Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's death did nothing to clear the air. Andrew only making it worse with a train wreck television interview.
I don't believe it's been damaging to the Queen at all.
has to mean.
Hard on the heels of that upheaval came the Mexit ultimatum. Harry and Meghan jumping ship, resigning as senior royals, planning to split their time between Britain, Canada and California.
I took matters by that point I took matters into my own hands. It was like, I need to do this for my family.
The strain on the brotherly bond between William and Harry that had endured so much must have caused the Queen such great distress.
Yeah, maybe the half-in, half-out model does work.
It took the death of Prince Philip to bring the family back together. Even if age-old traditions had to give way to a new custom, social distancing, the Queen alone in the royal pew at Philip's funeral. The loss of her husband was a time to reflect on their long time together, the moments of accomplishment and celebration, and the challenges overcome. Rarely displaying public emotion, she could be excused for perhaps feeling she had fulfilled the course she charted the day she was crowned. And satisfied, no doubt, that those who will follow her, Charles with his renewed popularity, William, who transcends tradition and youth, and the royal boy George will continue doing the job so ably carried out for so long by Queen Elizabeth II.